So what's the point of all this content of me talking back and forth to myself anyway? Well, I tell you, it's certainly not to get you to blame your ex. It's certainly not to get you to blame a gender. It's actually to empower you to take new action, to empower you to be unstoppable in whatever situation you're in. When I first started coaching, I learned from some excellent business people that said you need to start with the reason that your business exists. What is the point of any of this? And it was very clear to me. It was based on a promise I made to my coach 10 years ago, which is to empower you in any situation. When I made that promise to my coach, to be empowered in any situation, I thought that was crazy. Because what does that actually mean? Empowered in any situation. Well, it means regardless of what's going on in your life, you're the source of things working out for you. We are actually the ones to make a difference. Now that's a very unique way to live. Most of us aren't living like that. As I've seen in some of the comments that are disempowering. Let's talk about that for a second, being disempowered. Being disempowered is when you're at the mercy of your circumstance. When your situation causes you to stop believing in love. When your ex becomes this target to blame for your trauma. Now, understandable completely. But again, that's why I'm doing this work. To empower people in any situation. Because when we have that, we are literally unstoppable. Because no matter what happens, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you want to be married, whether you want to start a family, there will be moments where we'll be disempowered. The question is, will that become a lifestyle for us? Or will it simply be a moment of being disempowered? The challenge for me of making this promise about myself is I've got to be it. And I remember when my coach asked me to make this promise, I said, how am I supposed to make this promise to be empowered in every situation? What about if I go bankrupt? What if I get broken up with? What if my marriage falls apart? What if a family member dies? She said, empowered in every situation. And I was curious why this promise was so important. She said it was because, Simon, when you're empowered, you're an extraordinary leader. I'll follow you anywhere. You can do anything. You're literally an unstoppable human being. But when you're disempowered, you wreak havoc around you. You cause chaos. You put people down. You're painful to be around. And I looked at that and I was like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. And so you could see this shift. It's not circumstantial. Most of us are trying so hard to control our circumstances. That's not the path. Instead, you want to be able to empower yourself and thus actually influence your circumstances. Not control them, influence them. The only thing we can control is ourselves. But most of us are interested in focusing on that part because it takes a shitload of courage. And so when you're watching this content, notice yourself. Notice yourself looking externally for something to blame. There's nothing wrong with you. Every person I work with in coaching, they're not broken. Some people think they're broken. You're not broken. You're just disconnected from who you really are. You're not really clear about what you want and what you've been through, and you've had some scars that have left a mark on you. And so now you're trying to figure out how to do life. Well, those scars are really influencing what's going on. We're disempowered by what's happened. So the real opportunity here is to empower you in every situation. So when you're watching this content, look from, where can I influence my environment? What am I pretending is not in my control? That will be an empowering place to look. Now, if you're wanting to look further, of course, get coaching. Whether it's with me or somebody else, reach out for support. I've got a digital course that people can go through on their own pace where I'm guiding you through your journey of development. I've got a group coaching program. We've got one-on-one coaching. We've got lots of opportunities to support people. I'm with the whole mission to empower you in any situation, because when you are empowered, you can create anything and nothing phases you. I don't know about you, but to me that is a superpower in life. So, wanted to share with you guys the intention for all this work that I'm doing here. It's not just to entertain, not just to educate, to actually make a difference. And I know how easy it is. We can just start scrolling, next video. It really takes something to actually see a video, pause, and then commit to an action. Again, this is the value of coaching. It's a structure that you committed to where you're actually guided along the way rather than being left to your own devices, which is typically where we operate in our default behaviors and create the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to stay on for some questions. If you guys got some questions about coaching, about life, about relationships, about empowerment, go ahead and ask, and I will answer some questions. Just scrolling to see someone ask something earlier. Can you do a video about power in relationships and how it's bad to give up all the power to the other person? Basically how the imbalance of power affects relationships. So I think the power you're talking about is not the power that I'm talking about. So sometimes in my videos, I'll share about getting your power back. Now that isn't power over someone else. If you're trying to have power over someone else, you're trying to manipulate them, you're trying to control them. That's not the power I'm talking about. The power I'm talking about is where, regardless of anyone else's actions, you aren't fazed. You have control over yourself. That's what being secure is all about. That you have power over what you participate in, what you don't participate in, what you tolerate, what you don't tolerate, what you create in your relationship. So this is a common bit of confusion in relationships, to give up the power. Being vulnerable can be perceived as giving up power, but being vulnerable is a superpower. To share something where you might be rejected by someone or judged by someone is vulnerable. It also gives you the opportunity for connection. It empowers you to create connection. So I don't agree with this giving up all the power, because no one can take power away from you unless you've given it to them. I'm not talking physically here. Not talking physically. But if you feel powerless in a relationship, which might be to answer your question, if you feel powerless in a relationship, then you want to look at where you're currently saying yes and you actually want to say no. You're probably agreeing to some things you don't actually want to agree to. That's one part. Another part might be you're wanting to interrupt something with this person and you're not, so you feel powerless. So I would see if you get specific with that, and I would go from there. Again, anytime I answer these questions, you guys, they're meant to give you a little bit of momentum, something to kind of like a hook to go with. If you want to actually make dramatic change in your life and be empowered in any situation, get coaching. Don't half-ass it. Fully commit to this thing, and you can get incredible results. Most of the results that we're hungry for are eluding us because of lack of commitment. Lack of commitment to ourselves, lack of commitment to our work, lack of commitment to our partner. We're kind of just tiptoeing around. That doesn't get us extraordinary. And why would it? All right, let's see what other questions we got here. Feel free to put them in the question box. Scrolling can be hard to find them. Someone said, I'm alternating very often between being empowered, and there are times I feel very vulnerable and disconnected. How do I keep reminding myself that I'm not lost? Why is my power within myself keep fading out? So let me answer. There's a couple parts to this question. So, of course, you move between being empowered and disempowered. That's going to happen. The game is not to be empowered permanently. The game is, how fast can I go from disempowered to empowered? How fast can I go from triggered to untriggered? Now, for me, I want that game to be seconds or minutes. For many people, it's months or years. And when we're disempowered, it shifts everything going on in our life. So, first thing, to have a bunch of forgiveness for yourself when you are disempowered. Let go that you're doing this thing wrong when you're disconnected. It's okay, I'm disconnected. You want to observe it and go, that's just what's happening. It's not who I am. There's an incredible distinction that we start to practice when we separate what I'm feeling from who I am. People who walk around going, I'm depressed. It's very different between I'm depressed and I feel depressed right now. When you speak I am depressed, it becomes part of your identity. You sort of walk around as if it's who you are. Now, not speaking of people who are actually diagnosed with depression, but there's many people who are not diagnosed, who are not getting the support that they need, and they're walking around saying I'm depressed. Well, that doesn't work. That's going to keep us stuck for sure. So, how do you keep reminding yourself that you're not lost? Well, the forgiveness is the first place. I'm disconnected. It's okay to be disconnected sometimes. It's part of it. As soon as I can accept that I'm disconnected and acknowledge it, I'm now on the track back to being connected. Now, the other question, why is the power within yourself keep fading out? Because it actually takes huge courage to be empowered. It is much easier to blame the world, to blame a gender, to blame your past for what you're dealing with. But to be someone who's empowered in their life, that goes, it's all up to me, that's freaking scary. That's freaking scary. Sometimes I want to shake you guys. I want to go, why don't these people just sign up for coaching, get themselves the structure, and their life's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Why don't they do that? And then I go, well, that's me blaming you and what you're dealing with. That doesn't work. That's inauthentic. And so instead, I'm always on the lookout for where can I make a difference? How can I make this easier for people? How can I convey a message like I'm trying to do right now that clicks something for you? That has you go, I'm going to take action in a new way. So hopefully that answers your question. First part being forgiveness. Second part being it's very scary to own how powerful we are because it comes with a massive amount of responsibility. Believe me, it's not always natural or easy for me to talk to social media, you guys, knowing it might be seen by millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people. I didn't get a how-to manual on how to do that. It can be a scary thing. So I really want, like my coaching program is called Love Over Fear because I want people to start accepting that it's okay to be scared, that it's actually part of it. And it's almost weird if we're not scared. You know, when we're going to propose to that partner, when we're going to say yes, when we're going to ask them on a date, when we're going to have that conversation we've been avoiding. Those are scary things because they matter to you. And that's not a bad thing. When we can start to like cuddle up to that fear and accept it, now we can start to look and choose love over fear. Rather than, oh, this is too scary, I'm not going to do it. Oh, I'm too afraid, why bother? So that's another one of my tangents for you. Someone said, I've made a difference for them. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that. I love hearing that. I know you guys are dealing with whatever you're dealing with, but I don't, some people tell me what it's like for them. Some people don't. Mark Bolin, sorry, I'm saying your name wrong probably, says, how do you overcome abandonment issues? How do I feel okay with people constantly leaving? So, you want to feel okay with people constantly leaving. Well, I might adjust the question. I think what you're really wanting to ask is, how do I create a relationship that lasts? Would that be more accurate? How do I create a relationship that lasts? Now, abandonment issues, there's an exercise I do in my course called the Unquenchable Thirst. The Unquenchable Thirst is this idea that we have this concern inside of us. And no matter what someone else does, the concern remains. So the concern here for you might be, will they leave me? Or when will they leave me? They're going to leave me at some point because that's what I'm used to. Well, for you, that's going to feel like an unquenchable thirst. Even if someone has a great track record with you, they've been with you for a long time, they've been supporting you, they've been stood by your side, they've showed up reliably, and still there's this abandonment issues. I'm going to be left. So how do I overcome that? Well, again, we do deep work on this in my program, but I'm going to give you a little bit of momentum here. You first want to acknowledge that it might not be about what they're doing or not doing. It might have very little to do with what they're doing and not doing. This is something you're walking around with, almost like on the lookout for. They pulled their hand away when I was holding their hand. Are they going to leave? They're taking longer to text this week than they did last week. Does that mean they don't like me anymore? We're like looking for it. And we will always find what we're looking for. And so you want to start to acknowledge that you are looking for that. You're actually looking for evidence of how this thing might not work. That's going to leave you in a tight spot. So first start to notice when you do that. Notice the subtle moments. Now again, with every exercise I do with people, you want to look at it like you're training a muscle you haven't used before. So you're not going to be good at it. You're not going to be good at noticing when this happens. We just want to notice it a little bit. And in those moments when you can notice, oh, I'm looking for a reason that they're going to leave me. Okay. Can I look anywhere else right now? What else might this mean? They pulled their hand away. They didn't text me. What else might this mean? I shared, as a recovering anxious attacher, I like to call myself that, because I can be avoidant, I can be secure, I can be anxious. It's a spectrum, you guys. The aim of the game is to be secure most of the time. Of course, sometimes things trigger you. It's just part of being human. Whether they stay triggering you, that's where the game comes into play. So I remember this one time, my wife and I, we were dating, and early stages, very excited about each other. And she was out with her girlfriends, and I messaged her, like, how's your night going? And I didn't hear from her for like an hour. And my heart was racing. I was so nervous, thinking, some guy's probably hitting on her right now. She's probably making out with somebody right now at a club. Oh my God, now I'm like sweating. I'm picturing it. It's brutal. Now, what actually happened? What happened was I sent a message and she didn't respond yet. Okay, what evidence am I looking for? I'm looking for evidence that she's cheating on me, that she wants to leave me. I have no actual evidence of that. It's all made up right here. So if that's made up, what else could I make up? She's so busy talking about me to her friends that she can't answer the phone right now. And I almost laughed to myself when I made that up in my head. I was like, that feels good. I like that thought. And so what we often, this muscle that many of us don't even realize we can have, what we often don't realize is we're walking around making up stories all over the place, just making shit up about men, about women, about anxiety, about our fears. The truth is, something happened and we've put a story on top of it. But most of us think our story and what happened is the same thing. Until we can separate those two things, we are screwed. We're run by the story. Someone asked the question, how do you know when something's not made up? You actually trace your steps by answering this question, what actually happened? In the example I just gave you, what actually happened was I sent a text message, asked her, how's the party going? And she didn't answer. That's the only things that actually happened. Everything else is color added. If you're going to add some color, paint a picture that excites you. Paint a picture that makes you feel good. Then go find out. But find out from a space of curiosity, not from a space of argument, righteousness, anger, resentment, because that further creates the very thing we don't want. Most people with abandonment issues end up creating disconnection with people because we're so afraid of it that we become on the lookout, on the hunt for something. Well, that's not attractive. That's not a reason to people to stick around. Or we disengage completely. We try to beat them to the punch. Well, again, it causes the very thing we're scared of. So like I said at the beginning of this video, that's a result of being disempowered. We really have so much more power than we think to influence our lives, our circumstances, our families. This is why I'm doing this work. This is why I'm sharing with you right now. So that I can coach as many people as possible to be empowered, to actually influence their lives. There's so much potential out here just laying in wait, but we can't even access it if we're still living in our stories, if we're still looking for evidence of why things aren't fair and it doesn't work for me. Hey, what is the quote you've probably heard before? Whether you think you're right or you think you're wrong, you're right either way. I can't remember the details. The negativity bias is insane. Yeah, it totally is. It's really just kills opportunity. Casey Runner says, is it a control issue for me? Is it a control issue for me? Anxious. Oh my God, what happened to this video? Why is it all weird? What the heck is this? Share a photo. What are you guys looking at? Are you looking at a guy doing kettlebell swings right now with his own face on it? What is... Oh my God, there we go. That freaked me out. Sorry guys, I pressed the wrong button. That was weird. Let me go back to the question box. Is it control? Is it a control issue for me or an avoidant issue for him? Still says he wants to be with me. That's a very vague and short question. Not sure how to answer that. You're anxious. He's avoidant. I mean, yeah, I really can't answer that question. There's way too few details. If I can point to what might be in the background for you, Casey. So what I see a lot of people dealing with is a disconnection to our own intuition. You know, most of the questions I get in relationship coaching have to do with trying to make sure I don't get hurt. Well, trying to make sure I don't get hurt is operating from fear. It's not operating from love. And it's normal. It's not wrong. It's what most of us are doing. But it doesn't yield a new future. It doesn't create what we want. And so what I think you want to look at, Casey, is more, where am I disconnected to what I really want right now? What am I scared of? Have I voiced that concern? I've actually looked at the fear behind the fear. Again, you guys, this shit is hard to do on your own. I've been getting coaching for 10 years. I encourage everyone to get a coach. Make it easy for yourself. It doesn't have to be this hard. I'm still getting coaching. I'm a happily married man with a little baby boy. My life, I'm living the dream of dreams that I didn't even know was possible. And I'm still getting coaching because I want to make it as easy as possible for me. I want my life to just continue to skyrocket. And that's available for all of us if we're willing to commit ourselves to something. If we're willing to stop telling our story of why it's not working for us and take matters into our own hands. That's what this video is to encourage you to do. All right, I think I'll do one more. It's kind of a long... Oh, you had another part earlier, Casey. I'm so sorry. I didn't see it. Let me see if... Marriage is... You said I don't know. I'm so bad with acronyms. I'm like the old man now. People, like you said, marriage is IMPT. I have no idea what that means, but I gotta Google this stuff. Boyfriend ended things after 1 year because of overwhelmed. Okay, well, let me see if I can touch on this without having too much information. So, it's normal to be overwhelmed with commitment. It's a normal feeling. I think when we get overwhelmed by commitment, we're scared of being able to control the future. We're maybe scared financially. We're maybe scared about what we're going to lose. We're maybe scared about missing out on other opportunities with other people. That overwhelm's normal. It's just such a human reflex to commitment. And so if he ended things because he was overwhelmed, you want to get to the heart of the matter of what he was actually overwhelmed by. You know, he might be overwhelmed by the possibility of having to support a family. He might be overwhelmed by the idea of maybe an expectation that you have or that he is assuming you have. So you want to get to the bottom of what's behind that. Because if you don't, the overwhelm is just going to come up again later. So I just want to first off acknowledge it's normal for you or him to feel overwhelmed in relationships. And that's not a deal breaker. It doesn't have to be. It was for him in that moment, but my wife and I broke up when we were engaged. We broke up for 6 months with no intention. It wasn't a break. It wasn't I'll work on some stuff, you work on some stuff, we'll meet back here. It was over. And we found our way back to each other very naturally. We just kind of worked out from this genuine desire. But it also took a lot of work to make sure we didn't repeat the patterns that had us break up in the first place. So whenever couples get back together, which is totally possible, you got to make sure what had you break up is something that's going to shift. Otherwise, it's just countdown till it happens again. Christina asks, how often should you check in with your coach? How much time between meetings should you have for reflection to actually feel you're doing some work? I like this question. That really depends, Christina. So I have worked with a number of different coaches where I've spoke to them once a month, once every few months, once a week. For me, the opportunity to reach out to your coach is to do so when you're stuck. As soon as you're stuck, check in with your coach. Now, that isn't a time frame. That might be I'm flying high and things are working out for me for a month straight. Haven't had any breakdowns. Just breakthrough. Now you need to check in with your coach. So it's not an amount of time. That being said, so like in my coaching, I have a self-paced program, I've got a group program, and I've got a one-on-one program. And the idea is to guide you through your own breakdown. All right, so when you're stuck, that you actually able to get yourself out of that position as fast as possible. The goal of the coach, you said, how much time between meetings should you have for reflection to actually know you're doing some work? I mean, you got to have progress in your life. If you're not having progress from a coach or therapist, you need a new one. You need a new one. I can't believe I talk to people who've been working with therapists talking about your problems and living in them. So the real work happens outside of the sessions. Whether you're working with me in any one of those three options, the real work happens outside of the sessions when you are actually bringing the work to your real life. So in my program, we create measurable results and we create feelings that you want to experience out of your participation. This really clearly clarifies what you want to happen, so we can actually see if it's happening or not. So I would get clear about what you want to be happening, Christina. Get really clear about what you want to be happening. Check in, is it happening? If it's not, reach out to your coach and figure out what the gap is. That's the job of having a coach. I tell everyone I work with, your job is the what, as in what do you want? What do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? My job is the how. My job is to help create that path for you. So this was a long one. I'm going to hop off, you guys. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for your sharing. You guys are awesome. I just so acknowledge you for being committed to growth and development, for being people who just are full of love. Love and connection comes naturally to all of you. There's just some shit in the way. There's just some past get in the way. There's some control get in the way. It doesn't have to be this hard. So I acknowledge you for being open to a new pathway.